Hey everybody, it is Mr. George and welcome to tonight's class. This is Wednesday, April 15th. Tonight we are going to read a story about two individuals named Lewis and Clark. They went on a journey, so that's going to be the theme tonight. A journey is some type of like long trip. It can be a physical journey, which is what Lewis and Clark did, but people can also go on some type of like spiritual journey. So it's some type of trip that you take. I'm then going to ask you to complete the online assignment, which I'll review in 1 minute. And then afterwards, after you do that, I'd like you to write a paragraph, which is usually around 4 to 5 sentences about your own specific journey. So first, let's just review the assignment. So when what I'd like you to do is, after I read the story, obviously I would like you to read the story independently, and it makes a lot of sense if you can read it out loud just to practice pronunciation. So you have a couple of choices. You can create a Google Doc and you can share it with me. You can type it into an email and send it to me, or you can just write it into a notebook and then take pictures of it and send it back to me. I will say that if you can type it into a Google Doc and share it with me, that is the best, because I can then go into the Google Doc, I can edit it, I can make some changes, I can send it back to you, and you can easily see the changes or suggestions that I'm making. So regarding the online assignment, there are 4 major parts. First one looks at vocabulary. These are terms, new words, new terms. I want you to identify, choose 10, look them up, and write the definition down for each one of those words and how it is being used in the sentence. Then for part 2, write 1 complete sentence for each of the words that you chose from part 1. Please underline the word in each sentence. Part 3, what is the main idea of the story? What is the central idea? What is this story really about if you had to put it in 1 sentence? And the last part, create some questions that you'd like to ask the person the story is about. So for this story, it's about Lewis and Clark. So you can just look at, if you could ask them 1 question, what would it be? And this is the example that I used from March 17th. The story was on Ronald McNair from our book Callings. So here's an example of the online assignment. You can pause this if you want to look at this in more detail. This gives you the vocab words. This gives you the definitions for each one, part 1. Part 2 shows how we're using the words in sentences. Part 3 looks at the main idea of the story of Ron McNair. And part 4, I asked you to come up with 2 or 3 questions that you'd like to ask the person. Okay, so that is an example of an online assignment. Tonight, after I read the story, I'm going to show you there is 1 more paragraph that I would like you to write about your own individual journey. So at this point, I'm going to read the story to you, and then I'm going to go over that last part of the assignment. And then during our scheduled class time, if you have any questions, you can either email me directly or you can contact me via Google Voice if you want to send me a message, and I'd be happy to give you some feedback. So our story is in your student book on page 84 and 85. If you don't have it available, you can obviously you can just read along through the video and stop it if you need to. Lewis and Clark, American Explorers by Barbara Radner, 2005. The Lewis and Clark Expedition, also known as the Corps of Discovery Expedition, was the first effort by Americans to explore what is now the western United States. President Thomas Jefferson had just completed the Louisiana Purchase in 1803, in which the United States bought a great deal of land from the French. He wanted American travelers to map and characterize the newly acquired territory and establish an American presence there. As you read, identify the difficulties that Lewis and Clark faced on their journey and how they overcame them. More than 200 years ago, in 1804, two explorers made made an important journey. They were named Meriwether Lewis and William Clark. Remember, when there's a footnote down here, where there's a number down here at the bottom, it gives you some additional information or definition of those terms. Today, people know a lot about the places they visited, but 200 years ago, there were no maps of that part of the United States. They would travel by boat most of the way, and they would make the first maps of that part of our country. They were going to trace where a great river went. The river they were mapping is a very big one called the Missouri River. They wanted to find out where it went. They hoped it would take them to the ocean. They took many people with them to help with the exploration. There were more than 40 people on the trip. They also carried many supplies, including a lot of food. They hoped they would find food along the way, but this was long ago and they did not know what the territory would be like. The explorers had 3 boats to carry them and their supplies. It was summer when they started on this long trip. They traveled slowly, each day traveling a short distance because they had to row their boats on the river. They would only travel a few miles every day. They traveled for months and were still far from their destination. In winter, it was difficult to travel, so they camped along the river. There they would wait for spring when traveling would be easier. Snow and ice made it very hard to travel in winter. Native Americans helped them along the way. They helped them get food and they showed them where places were. The explorers had never been to this area before, so they were not sure where to find food or even where the river went. The Native Americans had lived there for many years, so they knew the area and how to survive there, even in the hard winter. A Native American woman named Sacagawea helped them travel. She became their guide, and she traveled with them for months. It was hard work for everyone, including Sacagawea. The explorers needed her help to find their way to the west. They wanted to find out how to get to the ocean. As they traveled, they made maps. Their maps showed the way the river went. It passed through grasslands, and then they were in mountains. When they got to the mountains, they had to leave their boats and walk. It took more than a year for the explorers to get to the ocean. When they got there, they had made maps that would help many people. But they had to bring the maps back. It had taken more than a year to make this first part of the trip. It also took a long time to get back. When the explorers came back in 1806, they had been gone 2 years, and people said they were heroes. They would not make such a great journey again. They had done their job. Their maps would help people settle in the new land. Long after their trip, people would build roads to the west. They would travel quickly by car. Today, people can travel their route by plane. If you look out the window from the plane, you will see those high mountains. You will see what a difficult journey it was. So at this point, I'm going to ask you to complete that assignment, the 4 parts of the assignment. And then when you're all done, I would like you to write a paragraph or 4 to 5 sentences about an actual journey, some long trip that you've made in your life. Okay? So at some point in your life, you must have made a journey. I'd like you to write about that in 4 to 5 sentences. If you haven't made a journey, then I would like you to write a paragraph or 4 to 5 sentences about a journey you'd like to make but haven't done yet. So a journey you would like to make, but you haven't done that yet. Great. And when you're all done, please submit the assignment to me. And I wish you well tonight. Until next time.